Kia ora koutou. I'm Andrew Picard, the Director of Carey Graduate School, and I'm here with Melissa Powell. Melissa has just finished a thesis in the Carey Graduate School, and I thought it would be a really good chance to talk with her to hear a little bit about the research and to celebrate her work, as well as a little bit about the research journey at Carey. So, kia ora, Melissa, welcome.
Kia ora.
Can you tell us a little bit about what drew you to doing postgraduate study at Carey?
I guess the journey towards postgraduate research started way back when I did my undergraduate degree. I was encouraged by a number of my lecturers to think about that as a possibility, and so it was this thing that kind of hovered there, but I felt at the time when I was finishing that actually it just wasn't the right time to go down that journey, that I needed to. I am someone who likes the details of wrestling with scripture, and doing detailed exegesis is something that I find interesting and love doing, but I knew that I'm also the kind of person that can get very caught in ideas, and I wanted time to actually have to wrestle with those things in a real world kind of context with real people and real problems. And so I didn't feel like it was a good time for me to delve into research, because I felt like it would be too much in my head and not enough actually grounded in real life, which I feel like is really important. So 13 years later, I thought the timing felt like it was right to come back and go on that journey. And in terms of why Carey particularly, I guess there were a number of things that played into that. Part of it was people that had kind of been formative in my journey as an undergraduate, and also the flexibility that the program at Carey offered me as someone who's a parent. When I started my master's journey, my two kids were 5 and 7, so being able to be flexible around what their needs were and make the study work, that was a part of it. And I guess the other thing for me is I think that one of the things Carey does really well is that connection between the world and the word, and how those things work together. And so for me, it felt like a really natural fit for the kind of research that I wanted to do and what was important. So yeah.
Brilliant. Because you are a mum and you're a Wesleyan minister and a graduate student, so brilliant. So what was your thesis topic and why did you choose it?
So my thesis topic was a missional reading of Judges 13 to 16, which is the Samsom narrative. And what I was interested in was the kind of resonance that Samson story has for us in the world today. I think the world is in kind of a crisis of leadership, both within the church and outside of it. There's the kind of constant arguments about who's allowed to lead, what does good leadership look like, what does moral authority look like, and I felt like there's this resonance in the Samson story of someone who is in the world and wrestling with some of those kinds of questions, and that story, whilst it doesn't have the whole picture, actually wrestles with some of those questions. And so that was what was interesting to me, and so I wanted to have an opportunity to actually dig in and peel that back and explore what that might tell us.
Brilliant. And can you tell us a little bit about the research journey, maybe some discoveries, surprises that research can take, but also some of the struggles?
It was I really enjoy writing, but I found the process of writing the thesis quite different from anything that I had done before, and it was quite challenging working out how to manage life and ministry and actually really make it all work. And it's quite, I guess I expected it to be a bit like writing an essay, because I'm kind of a last minute person, and so I would often spend a lot of time reading, but then I just sit down and everything would kind of flow out and you'd form it. but I found that the research process with the masters was quite different. That actually there was a lot more kind of reading than writing, then reading then writing, and it was a lot more and then rewriting and rewriting and rewriting and rewriting, which is fun but also different. So it was, the process was not entirely what I expected, and it was I knew it would be difficult, but it was hard.
And discoveries, learnings, surprises, connections that you made?
I mean, when I started out, I kind of I figured that the picture that we see of leadership in scripture was something that, you start out and you understand this much, and then it kind of, as it evolves, it gets bigger and bigger, and we start to see that there's more to this than we thought. But what I actually found was that whilst yes, there is kind of evolution of the understanding, that actually there was a lot more consistency, and that there is actually quite a consistent picture of what good leadership actually looks like in scripture. It was so I think from the beginning the picture is clearer than I expected it to be. In hindsight, that shouldn't really be surprising, because if I think the picture of justice in scripture is quite consistent. If the picture of justice is consistent, then the picture of power is going to be consistent too. And if the picture of power is consistent, then it makes sense that the picture of what good leadership looks like is also going to be consistent. But I didn't expect to see that. I expected to see more evolution of those ideas, but actually,
Because you used theological interpretation of scripture. Samson, David.
So
Luke,
I did.
Jesus.
I did a canonical reading using theological interpretation of scripture. So I looked at the Samson narrative alongside a narrative from David's story, the confrontation between Nathan, the prophet Nathan, and David, and then looked at that alongside a story from the Gospels about Jesus's temptation, and looked at what that tells us about Jesus's leadership as a both human and God, and what that tells us about human leadership, and how we as humans hold power. So I was looking at those three narratives and how they speak to each other, and the bigger picture that they give us.
Brilliant. So lastly, how does this bear out in your life and in your ministry? And
it bears out in lots of ways. I think much harder about some of the things that I do. I mean, I've always been a relatively reflective practitioner, but I think it's made me much more so. I recently took on a role within our national church as the National Bullying and Harassment Officer. So it's bearing out in that I'm actually some of the questions that I was wrestling with around what do we do when leadership fails, and how do we create pathways for reconciliation, how do we create pathways for justice for victims, those kind of things. Actually having to wrestle with the kind of real world, how we actually do those things in practice. And so it's kind of again, that theory is flowing into actual practice.
Brilliant. Well, congratulations on your work. It's a significant achievement, and we're really proud of what you've done, and we hope it has a long afterlife, and we hope it's not the last thesis that you do. So thank you, Melissa, and we look forward to being able to celebrate more with your work.
Cool, thank you.
Ka kite.